Let me ask you something. Look around your life. The people closest to you, the voices you hear the most, the conversations you keep repeating. Now be honest. Are they building your future or quietly breaking it? Because here is something I learned early in life. You do not rise alone, and you do not fall alone either. You are influenced constantly, quietly, powerfully. Show me your circle, and I will show you your direction. Not your dreams, not your intentions, but your direction. Because your circle is shaping your thinking, and your thinking is shaping your life. Now listen carefully. Most people do not realize it, but their environment is training them every day. What to think, what to expect, what to believe about themselves. And slowly, without noticing, they become a reflection of the people they spend time with. That is why this message matters. Because if you want to change your life, you must first examine your circle. Not judge it, not blame it, but understand it. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Think about that. Average thinking, average habits, average results. Or high thinking, high discipline, high results. So today is not just about motivation. It is about awareness. Because once you become aware, you can no longer stay the same. Let's go deeper into this truth and understand why your circle may be the most important decision you ever make in your life. Listen to me carefully. Your life is not just built by what you do. It is shaped by what you are exposed to. And what you are exposed to the most becomes your thinking. Now think about that. Not your goals first, not your dreams first, but your thinking, because everything begins there. Let me say it slowly. Your thinking is not created in isolation. It is influenced daily, quietly, constantly, by the people you sit with, by the voices you trust, by the conversations you repeat. Now here is something most people never realize. You don't just choose your circle. Your circle also chooses your mindset. If you are surrounded by doubt, you begin to think in doubt. If you are surrounded by complaints, you begin to think like a complainer. If you are surrounded by excuses, you begin to justify your own limitations. And slowly, without even noticing, your thinking becomes borrowed thinking. Not original, not powerful, not yours. Just repeated noise from your environment. Now listen, there is a law in life that is rarely spoken about, but always working. You become what you repeatedly hear. Not in one day, not in one conversation, but over time, through repetition, through influence, through exposure. That is why your circle is not just social. It is psychological. It is shaping what you believe is possible. Let me ask you something. When you share a big dream, do the people around you expand your belief or shrink it? Do they say, why not you? Or do they say, be realistic? Because those words, they don't just stay in your ears. They enter your thinking. They settle into your mindset. They become your internal voice. And one day, you stop dreaming, not because you failed, but because your environment taught you to stop. That is how powerful this is. Now listen closely. You are not just influenced by your circle. You are being trained by your circle. Trained in what to expect from life. Trained in how hard to try. Trained in how far to believe. And that is why 2 people with equal talent can end up in completely different lives. Same ability, different environment, different thinking, different outcome. Now here is the truth you must face. If you want to change your life, you cannot only change your habits. You must also change your influences, because your habits will struggle if your environment is pulling you back. But when your circle supports your growth, your thinking becomes stronger, clearer, and unstoppable. So take a moment and reflect, not on your future yet, but on your influence, because your circle is not just around you. It is inside you, shaping your thoughts, shaping your beliefs, shaping your life. And once you understand that truth, You will never look at people the same way again. Listen closely, because this is something most people feel, but very few people understand. Energy is not neutral. It is not passive. It is alive in motion. It spreads quietly, instantly, powerfully. And whether you realize it or not, you are always absorbing it. From the people you sit with, from the conversations you enter, from the environment you stay in. Now think about that. Have you ever walked into a room feeling focused and left feeling tired? Or walked in motivated and left feeling doubtful? Nothing physically changed, but something changed inside you. That is energy. And energy is contagious. Let me say it clearly. Positive energy lifts you without permission. Negative energy pulls you down without warning. You don't always see it happening, but you always feel it happening. Now listen carefully. One of the most dangerous environments in life is not the one filled with problems. It is the one filled with complaining, because complaining is not just words. It is a mindset, and that mindset spreads. One complaint becomes another. One excuse becomes another excuse. One doubt becomes a shared belief. And slowly, what started as conversation becomes culture. A culture of limitation. A culture of blame. A culture of low standards. And when you stay in that environment long enough, you don't even realize you are part of it. You begin to speak the same language, think the same thoughts, expect the same results. Now here is the truth. Energy always wins over intention. You can intend to stay positive, but if your environment is negative, your intention will struggle to survive. That is why some people lose motivation so easily. It is not because they are weak. It is because they are surrounded by doubt, surrounded by gossip, surrounded by emotional noise. And over time, that noise becomes their inner voice. Now think about winners, not just successful people, but disciplined people. They carry a different energy, focused, clear, forward moving. When you are around them, you don't need motivation speeches. You feel the standard. You feel what is expected. You feel what is normal. And slowly, you rise to meet it. That is the power of the right energy. It doesn't push you. It pulls you upward. Now listen, you must become aware of what you are absorbing, because not everything around you deserves access to your mind. Not every conversation deserves your attention. Not every complaint deserves your agreement. Not every opinion deserves your belief. Some things must be heard and then released, because your mind is not a dumping ground. It is a garden, and whatever you allow in will grow. So ask yourself today, what kind of energy are you living in? Does it expand you or slowly shrink you? Does it sharpen your focus or scatter your attention? Because energy is always speaking. The only question is, are you listening consciously or absorbing unconsciously? And once you understand this truth, you will begin to protect your environment like your future depends on it. Because it does. Listen carefully. Because this is where life quietly changes. Not in big moments, not in sudden luck, but in proximity. In what and who is close to you. Now think about that. You don't just learn from books. You don't just learn from speeches. You learn from what is near you every day. Because what is near you becomes normal to you. And what becomes normal becomes your standard. Let me say it again slowly. Proximity determines possibility. Now listen, when you are close to small thinking, you begin to think small. Not because you chose it, but because you absorbed it. When you are close to average effort, you accept average results. When you are close to excuses, you begin to believe excuses are reasonable. But when you are close to ambition, something changes inside you. You don't need motivation. You need no push. You simply begin to expand. Because proximity is powerful. It is silent. It is constant. It is shaping you every day. Now here is something most people never realize. Your expectations are not created by your dreams alone. They are created by your environment. If everyone around you settles, settling becomes normal. If everyone around you delays, delay becomes normal. If everyone around you complains, complaining becomes normal. And once something becomes normal, you stop questioning it. That is the danger. Now listen closely. Success is not just about what you want. It is about what you are exposed to. Because exposure changes expectation. When you are exposed to discipline, you begin to respect discipline. When you are exposed to focus, you begin to value focus. When you are exposed to people who move with purpose, you stop tolerating distraction. And slowly, your life starts to rise to match your exposure. Now think about this truth. You don't rise to your goals first. You rise to your environment first. Your environment pulls you up or pulls you down. There is no neutral ground. Now let me give you something to reflect on. If you want to be successful, don't just study success. Study successful people. Watch them. Observe them. Be near them. Because proximity teaches what theory cannot. You can read about discipline, but being near disciplined people makes discipline feel normal. You can read about focus, but being near focused people makes distraction uncomfortable. That is the shift. Now listen, there is a quiet truth in life. You will rarely outperform your environment for long. Not because you lack ability, but because you lack reinforcement. And reinforcement comes from proximity. So ask yourself honestly, who are you close to? Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, daily. Who influences your decisions without speaking? Because proximity is not always visible, but it is always active. Now here is the powerful part. If you want to change your possibilities, you must change your proximity. Move closer to growth. Move closer to discipline. Move closer to responsibility. Move closer to people who demand more from life. And slowly, your thinking will stretch. Your standards will rise. Your expectations will expand. Your actions will improve. Because proximity always wins. Always. So remember this. Your future is not only decided by your ambition, but by your association. And when you understand that, you will become very careful about who you allow to be close to your life. Because closeness creates direction, and direction creates destiny. Listen to me carefully, because this is not about hate. It is not about ego. It is not about judging others. This is about your future. And your future is sensitive. It is fragile. It is shaped daily. Now hear this truth. Some people don't move forward. Not because they cannot, but because they choose not to. And when you stay too close to that mindset, it begins to influence you. Slowly, quietly, consistently. Now listen, there are people who do not dream anymore, so they discourage dreaming. There are people who do not grow anymore, so they resist growth. There are people who stopped believing in change, so they speak against change. And if you stay close enough, their voice becomes your voice. Their doubt becomes your doubt. Their limits become your limits. Their life becomes your reference point. And that is where growth begins to die. Not suddenly, but silently. Now understand this. You don't need toxic enemies to fail. Sometimes all you need is constant exposure to limiting thinking. Because limiting thinking is powerful. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It says things like, be realistic. Don't try too hard. People like us don't do that. That's not possible. And slowly, you start believing it. Not because it is true, but because it is repeated. Now listen carefully. One of the hardest decisions in life is not choosing success. It is choosing distance. Distance from what keeps you small. Distance from what keeps you comfortable. Distance from what keeps you average. And let me be clear. You don't have to disrespect anyone. You don't have to argue. You don't have to prove anything. You simply have to protect your direction, because every close influence shapes your path. Now think about this. If someone is constantly pulling you backward and you stay close, you will need twice the effort just to stay still. And most people never realize this. They think they are lazy. They think they lack discipline. They think they lack motivation. But in reality, they are surrounded by resistance. Now here is the truth you must accept. Not everyone deserves equal access to your life. Some people deserve your respect, but not your daily attention. Some people deserve your kindness, but not your constant presence. Because your attention is not free. It has a cost. It costs your focus. It costs your clarity. It costs your direction. Now listen, growth requires separation, not hatred, not anger, but clarity. Clarity about where you are going and what cannot come with you. Because you cannot move into a new life while carrying old thinking that refuses to change. Now let me say this slowly. You are not becoming what you want. You are becoming what you are around. So if you stay around limitation, you will normalize limitation. If you stay around excuses, you will start excusing yourself. If you stay around people who stop trying, you will slowly stop trying too. And one day, you will look at your life and wonder how you got there. But it was not sudden. It was influence. It was proximity. It was repetition. Now here is the turning point. You must choose your growth over your comfort, even if it feels uncomfortable at first, even if it creates distance, even if it feels unfamiliar, because comfort with the wrong people creates discomfort in your future. So choose wisely. And if necessary, step back, not to punish anyone, but to protect your direction, because your life is too valuable to be shaped by limits that are not yours. Now listen carefully, because this is where everything comes together. Not motivation, not theory, but action, real, intentional action. You cannot live a new life with an old circle. It does not work that way, because your future requires a different environment. Now think about that. Most people try to change their life without changing their surroundings. They try to think bigger while staying around small thinking. They try to grow while staying around people who stopped growing. And then they wonder why nothing changes. But the truth is simple. Your environment either supports your future or delays it. Now listen, if you want a better life, you must become intentional about your circle. Not accidental, not passive. Intentional. You must start choosing people based on direction, not comfort, because comfort keeps you where you are, but direction moves you forward. Now here is a powerful shift. Don't just ask, who do I like being around? Ask, who is shaping who I am becoming? Because becoming is more important than belonging. Now listen closely. You don't need a perfect circle. You need a growth circle. People who think, people who work, people who improve, people who don't just talk about change, but live it. Because when you are around people like that, something happens. Your standards rise. Your excuses disappear. Your focus sharpens. And slowly, you stop needing motivation because your environment becomes motivation. Now let me tell you something important. You don't find a strong circle. You build it. Sometimes you must start alone, growing, learning, discipline building. And as you grow, you begin to attract different people. Not people who drain you, but people who challenge you. Not people who limit you, but people who expand you. That is how it works. You become the signal and your circle adjusts. Now listen carefully. Your life will always reflect your closest influences. So if you want better results, don't just chase better goals. Chase better relationships. Chase better conversations. Chase better thinking. Chase better standards. Because everything in your life rises or falls with your circle. Your life changes when you change who you are around and who you become around them. So choose wisely. Choose growth. Choose discipline. Choose ambition. Choose direction. And build a circle that matches the future you are trying to create. Because in the end, your circle does not just reflect your life. It creates it. And so understand this. Your life is not an accident. It is a reflection of your thoughts, a reflection of your habits, and most importantly, a reflection of your circle. Now listen, if you want to change your life, you don't start with the world. You start with awareness. Awareness of who you are around. Awareness of what you are hearing. Awareness of what is shaping you every day. Because once you see it clearly, you can no longer ignore it. Now let this settle in your mind. You are not stuck. You are influenced. And what is influencing you can be changed. Slowly, wisely, intentionally. You don't need to cut everything off overnight. You don't need to rush decisions. But you do need clarity. Clarity about direction. Clarity about growth. Clarity about your future. Because your future is not waiting for permission. It is being shaped right now by your choices. So choose carefully. Choose people who expand you. Choose environments that challenge you. Choose conversations that build you. And above all, choose to become the kind of person who naturally attracts the life you want. Because in the end, success is not just about what you do. It is about who you become and who you become around. And remember this, your circle will either lift you higher or quietly keep you where you are. So build wisely, live intentionally, and never underestimate the power of the people around you, because they are shaping your destiny more than you realize.